Imagine a Hollywood studio came out today and said, I want to make The Lord of the Rings as one movie. Not another trilogy, not as a TV series, one movie. Could it be done? Should it even be done? We're going to have a look at this today.
Build me a army worthy of Mordor.
We have the Peter Jackson trilogy comprising 3 incredible films: The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, The Return of the King. I'm sure pretty much everyone here watching this video knows of them and has seen them, but can you imagine if today someone went, you know what, I want to make The Lord of the Rings as just one movie. Get rid of all the additional fluff, get rid of all these unneeded sequels. I want a quick, fast-paced story from this world, and I want it done in one go. It's hard to say if this is possible, should even be attempted, but today I'm going to look at all the different aspects of what may go into the movie, what we might need to do with it, what may need to come out, and really just have a bit of fun and see, is it even possible? So grab your lemon bread, chuck on your backpacks, and get ready to come on an adventure with me. As we know, all adventures start with one step outside the door, or in this case, one movie.
He's cracking.
I'm proud of it. Cheers, Gaffer.
So of course we're going to be looking at a few different aspects of what may need to be done to make this possible, but there's only one place to really start, and that is with the core narrative and the characters at hand. Obviously, at the centre of The Lord of the Rings, there is the quest to destroy the ring, led by Frodo Baggins, and of course with his loyal gardener, Samwise Gamgee. So that is in no doubt going to be the focal point for our one movie. It may be a shame to lose a lot of the stuff outside of that, but to make it work, we're going to have to make sacrifices, and they start here. After all, it is their heart, their bravery, and their friendship that truly drive the story forwards. In addressing our ensemble of characters beyond Frodo and Sam, we encounter a creative crossroads. The wide range of relationships, from Aragorn's royal destiny to the camaraderie between Legolas and Gimli, demands thoughtful integration. In a single movie format, we're challenged to reimagine these arcs in a way that complements the central narrative, perhaps through strategic cameo appearances or pivotal moments that encapsulate their journeys. The goal is to keep the narrative focused and moving swiftly, which means some side stories may only get a nod or be left on the cutting room floor. And you may wonder, how are we going to tackle that challenge of progression of time or development of characters in such a, well, one-off movie? There is really only one way that may become our secret weapon for this: montage.
We're gonna need a montage.
Picture this: Frodo and Sam's journey intercut with quick, poignant scenes of their allies' battles and struggles. These montages allow us to cover a lot of ground, showing the passage of time and the growth of our characters in an efficient, visually engaging way. By focusing on Frodo and Sam's journey and using creative storytelling techniques, we can distill the essence of this vast narrative into a single, cohesive film. It's all about capturing the spirit of the quest and the evolution of its heroes. So let's think of some examples for this. Firstly, there could be a montage sequence that could show Frodo and Sam's journey from the Shire to Mordor, interspersed with scenes of their growing resilience and friendship. This technique compactly shows their evolution and passage of time, without needing as extensive dialogue or exposition. Yes, I know Tolkien would hate that, but we're up against the impossible challenge here. You could also only selectively use key events, like instead of depicting every battle or event in detail, the film could focus on pivotal moments that directly impact Frodo and Sam. Meaning, if we look at the Battle of Helm's Deep, it could be briefly shown or referenced to indicate that the war is ongoing, while more screen time is actually devoted to Frodo and Sam's encounter with Gollum, which is of course more crucial to the story arc that we are trying to tell. You could also include narration to fill in gaps. Having someone like Gandalf as a narrator could really work well in this situation. His voice could narrate brief segments, providing necessary context or background that can't be shown due to time constraints. This could include summarizing some things like the formation of the Fellowship or explaining the significance of certain locations they pass through, helping viewers understand essential plot points without showing every event. When it comes to other characters, we could see more flashbacks. Instead of dedicating separate scenes to explore characters' backstories, strategic flashbacks could be used during key moments. For instance, a flashback could be utilised to show a brief glimpse into Aragorn's past and his relationship into claiming the throne of Gondor in the way that this story is told. This could include a moment where he is either counseled by Elrond about his destiny, or to a time when he is with the Rangers of the North, highlighting his leadership qualities and skills. Integrating this kind of flashback during a moment of doubt or decision for Aragorn in the main narrative could really underscore his internal struggle with his identity and destiny, which enriches his character development and his interactions with the Fellowship without needing extensive exposition. Another thought is that the film could use symbolic imagery to encapsulate themes of the story. For instance, more shots of the ring growing heavier around Frodo's neck can visually represent the burden of power and its corrupting influence, conveying those complex themes in a more visually impactful manner. And for one more example, as a way to streamline character interactions, we could only focus on interactions that directly influence Frodo and Sam's journey. Aragorn's leadership and resolve could be shown in a condensed form through a crucial pep talk before one of the fights, illustrating his kingly qualities without detailing his entire path to the throne, because in terms of Frodo and Sam on their journey, it may not be 100% essential. All of these are just some examples of ways that we could really start to bring the runtime down. Now, I feel like I need to really emphasize, I don't think this would improve the story. I don't think it would make it a better epic than the one that Tolkien wrote himself or the one that Peter Jackson made. It is just in terms of this challenge for today. So now, let us move on and explore how to handle the headache of the many locations and epic events without our movie turning into a sprawling map of Middle-earth.
I'm going on an adventure!
Something else we must consider is how Middle-earth is almost a character in its own right, from the tranquil place of the Shire to the shadowy evilness of Mordor. But in our quest today, we must consider, are all of these locations truly essential for the story that we are trying to tell today? And sadly, there are going to probably be a few that will get cut to the side, although they are amazing to see and would be incredible to explore. For our more streamlined version of the story today, they may just have to be left at the side. Now let's talk about events, specifically those epic battles and pivotal moments that define the trilogy. In a single film, we can't afford to linger too long on any one confrontation, no matter how spectacular it may be. Instead, we focus on key moments within those battles, those turning points that have the most significant impact on our characters and the outcome of their quest. It's about condensing without losing the intensity and stakes of these confrontations. You can probably see a running theme on some of the changes I'm having to make. But how do we cover the necessary ground without the story feeling rushed or disjointed? Here's where playing with the narrative structure comes into play. Non-linear storytelling and flashbacks can be invaluable tools. Imagine opening with a flash forward to a crucial battle, then winding back to the Fellowship's formation. This approach will not only pique interest, but would allow us to cover more narrative ground efficiently, giving context and depth to the characters' journeys in a way that linear storytelling might just not. So let's also consider a couple of other possibilities in how we could do this. What about with Gollum's backstory? A brief flashback of Smeagol's transformation into Gollum after acquiring the ring could be integrated when he first encounters Frodo and Sam. This not only provides viewers with immediate context about Gollum's tragic past and obsession with the ring, but also deepens the emotional impact of his character's journey, making his interactions with the hobbits perhaps more poignant. Or what about the history of the ring itself? A flashback sequence could be used to depict Isildur's initial defeat of Sauron and his refusal to destroy the ring, woven into the narrative when the gravity of Frodo's quest is being discussed. This historical context could help new viewers understand the ring's corruptive power and the long struggle against Sauron, setting the stakes for the journey ahead without as lengthy exposition. Or another one when we consider what could be done with the Siege of Gondor. How about a dramatic opening with a flash forward to this battle, showcasing the overwhelming forces of Mordor attacking Minas Tirith? This could serve as a powerful start. This scene, highlighting the city's defenders and the tease of the arrival of the Rohirrim, sets a tone of desperation and potential valor. Quickly transitioning back to the earlier, more peaceful times in the Shire as Frodo is about to receive the ring from Bilbo, really has a contrast that emphasises the looming threat over Middle-earth and the significance of Frodo's mission, without initially revealing the outcome of the siege or Gandalf's fate, maintaining suspense and intrigue. By consolidating locations and condensing events, and employing creative narrative techniques, we ensure our single movie version of The Lord of the Rings remains a thrilling and cohesive journey through Middle-earth. The essence of the epic's vast world and the monumental events can still captivate audiences even in a streamlined form. So what do we need to do from here? Well, we need to consider how we can preserve the emotional depth and thematic richness of the original masterpiece even as we trim its narrative expanse. So let's see how this goes.
I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you! Come on!
One of the things that is going to happen if this impossible task is ever going to come through is cut stuff out. We're going to have to leave things on the editing room floor as much as we may like them because they're not truly essential for driving the story forwards. We've got to just make sure that the main themes are present throughout, no matter what. The themes of friendship, sacrifice, and the fight between good and evil. These must remain at the heart of the story. To make the story's big ideas stand out in a shorter movie, we need to pick scenes carefully. Each scene should help the story move forward and also make the deeper messages stronger. Sometimes we'll show important places or moments between characters in a way that means a lot, even if we don't spend a lot of time on them. We'll keep the story moving quickly, but we'll also make sure to focus on the really important moments, like when characters connect, make big decisions, or show bravery. These moments are key because they show why the journey matters, why we cheer for Frodo and Sam, and how the Fellowship members come together despite their differences. But again, with so much ground to cover, how can we fill in the gaps without slowing down the narrative? This is where other creative storytelling techniques like a narrator or those strategic voiceovers can come back into play. The well-placed narration can swiftly bridge time jumps, offer insight into characters' thoughts, or provide necessary context that keeps the audience fully engaged in the story's unfolding drama. Imagine that voice, perhaps Gandalf's like I mentioned earlier, guiding us through the unfolding events, offering wisdom and perspective that deepens our understanding and connection to the tale. I mean, if it was Sir Ian McKellen doing it, I could listen to him all day. But I will also note that sometimes voiceover can be a bit of a lazy storytelling technique. There is always the rule of show, don't tell. But in our case today, we may be a little stuck. Maybe this all could be done in terms of telling a story by the fireside, and that could explain the narration more. But with our challenge today, we might not be able to be too picky. But anyway, by carefully selecting these narrative tools, we can weave a tapestry that's rich in emotion and thematic depth, even within the confines of a single film. It's a delicate balance, but one that allows us to attempt to honour Tolkien's legacy and the monumental impact of Peter Jackson's films, ensuring that the heart of The Lord of the Rings, its profound sense of hope, camaraderie, and the triumph of spirit remains undiminished. As we consider preserving the emotional and thematical integrity of our single film journey, let's dive a bit deeper into how we can accentuate Tolkien's key themes, adding layers of meaning that resonate with today's audience. One of the trilogy's most potent themes is the corruption of power. In our condensed narrative, this theme could be highlighted through the contrasting journeys of characters like Frodo, who bears the burden of the ring with humility, and Boromir, who succumbs to its lure. By carefully selecting scenes that emphasize these arcs, our adaptation can offer a nuanced exploration of power's ability to corrupt or inspire greatness, even within a tighter runtime. Equally important is Tolkien's love of nature, a theme that feels ever more relevant than it may have done years ago. So, how do we keep this important part of the story when we make it shorter? We can do this by making sure the beautiful places in Middle-earth are more than just pretty pictures. They're a big part of the story when used. For example, we can make sure we still show the Ents taking a stand against the destruction at Isengard, or the peaceful, beautiful forest of Lothlorien when Frodo passes through. These moments are special because they show us how powerful and delicate nature is. By including these scenes, we're not just telling a story, we're showing how nature itself is a big part of the adventure and has its own story to tell. By intentionally focusing on these themes, our adaptation does more than condense Tolkien's epic. It distills its essence, offering audiences a lens through which to view our own world. This thematic focus ensures that, even in its condensed form, the story remains, inviting viewers to reflect on the themes that are as timeless as the tale itself. But we aren't done in our mission yet. We must now transition from the thematic heart of Middle-earth to the practicalities of bringing such a vision to life. So, let's now go and consider the execution and impact of our single movie adaptation. As I've been going through this today, trying to consider on how on earth it would all be possible to even make happen, it really just keeps bringing up more questions, if anything. So if I address some of the more practical issues at this point, like How long should this movie even be? It's only one, but one movie can be pretty long. Or could it even be possible to appeal to both current and new fans? Do you almost have to pick one or the other, or can it work for both? So when considering how long should the movie be, we must remember we can't squeeze everything into a regular 2-hour movie because there is just too much happening in the story. But making it as long as all 3 original movies put together? Well, of course, that's too much. We're probably aiming for something around 3 hours. This may be considered long for a cinema-going experience, but maybe if we can have an extended cut closer to 4 hours for future releases, we can hit that sweet spot for telling a complete story without making it a full marathon sitting for the audience. I know many of us love the extended editions, but we also have to admit they are not for every moviegoer out there. It is interesting to think about though, how would hardcore fans or people new to The Lord of the Rings react to this potential single movie version? Many big stories have been adapted before, of course. Harry Potter was packed into 8 movies from 7 books, and they still left out a lot of stuff. Or closer to home, looking at The Hobbit, that was 1 book stretched into 3 movies, like butter over too much bread. Finding the right balance while keeping the story's heart and exciting moments so everyone enjoys it is one hell of a challenge. Another thing we can consider, which may help us, Howard Shore and his music's big role. When we look at Peter Jackson's trilogy, Howard Shore's epic music is such a big part. It sets the mood and helps us feel all those highs and lows. If we were to condense the trilogy, we've got to be smart about using the music to keep the story's emotional punch. Now, whether you use the same music in this version or you went for an entire new composer and idea, either way you would have to just make sure the music still carries the story's big moments and feelings. So really, with all this, here's the deal. Making The Lord of the Rings into one movie isn't just about trimming scenes. It's about nailing the perfect length, figuring out how to win over fans as well as welcoming newcomers, fitting the music to our new story pace, and getting through a bunch of technical stuff to make the movie feel just right. It is a big adventure, but if we are perhaps clever and careful, it could be an epic new way to see Middle-earth, especially for the latest generation, the TikTok generation. But realistically, it still feels like a bit of an impossible task.
Right. Where are we going?
Alright, let's put this all to work then and dive into a bit of a storytelling term called the 3-act structure. As I fully understand, not every single one of you will know what this is, so I will briefly try and explain. Imagine you're telling a story around a campfire. You start by setting the scene and introducing your heroes. That would be Act 1. Then you throw in some big challenges and adventures for them. That's Act 2. And finally, you reveal how everything ends with the heroes coming out on top, or perhaps just learning something important. That would be Act 3. This is the most basic way to try and explain it, and it's a classic way to build a story. Really what this all does is make sure that there is a beginning, a middle, and an end that will keep everyone listening and excited to find out about what happens next. So, how could we squeeze the giant adventure of The Lord of the Rings into just one movie using this 3-act structure? Let's break it down and imagine a version of the story that fits into these 3 parts, making sure we hit all the important bits without making it feel rushed or leaving out the stuff that makes us love Middle-earth. Here's a potential simple way that it could work. Act 1, the setup. We would have the opening, the movie starting with Gandalf narrating the history of Middle-earth and the One Ring, setting the stage for our epic tale. Then we introduce our hero, Frodo Baggins of the Shire, where he lives peacefully until Gandalf arrives to reveal Frodo's inheritance of the dangerous One Ring. Then there's the call to adventure. Gandalf explains the dire need to destroy the ring in Mount Doom, setting Frodo on his perilous mission. And that is where we get to the formation of the Fellowship, where in Rivendell, the Fellowship of the Ring is formed with Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli and Boromir, all willing to help Frodo in his quest. All these characters will be introduced, but probably far faster than they would have been before. This is where we move on to Act 2. The journey will then begin. Their journey kicks off with challenges, including a dangerous passage through the mines of Moria, where they lose Gandalf to the Balrog. We then continue with the Fellowship split. After various trials and Gandalf's fall, the Fellowship becomes divided. And so Frodo and Sam head to Mordor, where they meet Gollum with his dubious guidance, while the rest fight to support their cause. This is where we witness Frodo and Sam's struggle. As they move closer to Mordor, Frodo and Sam's battle with the ring's burden and Gollum's treachery is showcased through potential montages. And also we will see some key battles throughout this. Those major battles like Helm's Deep and the Siege of Gondor are briefly shown to emphasize the war's scope without dwelling too long on the details. And that's where we reach Act 3, the climax. Frodo and Sam reach Mount Doom, confront Gollum in the final struggle where the ring is then destroyed. Sauron is defeated. This is where we then get falling action. We see the aftermath of the ring's destruction, the celebrations in victory, and the reuniting of the Fellowship's surviving members. This is where the hobbits return home to a Shire that has changed. They face the aftermath of their journey, and this highlights the personal costs of their adventure. And that's where we reach the conclusion. Frodo, seeking peace, will then depart Middle-earth with Bilbo, Gandalf and the elves, with Sam returning to the Shire to live out his days, ending the story on a note of hope and continuation. This is of course a very basic outline structure about how this could be done. Sadly, there's still no room for Tom Bombadil or the Scouring of the Shire, and a lot more than that would have to be cut too. It's obvious that it would be by no means a better experience than the trilogy we have, but really today has just been more about a fun experiment to see what we could come up with. So there we have it. Today we have looked at the impossible task of how we could potentially turn the epic that is The Lord of the Rings into one single movie. It would really be like trying to take the entire journey and turn it into a single day's walk. It's quite intriguing to try, but like I said, it feels like that impossible challenge. We've looked at how to keep the story's heart by focusing on Frodo and Sam, and how we might need to cut or change a lot to make it work. We talked about making sure the movie isn't too long, but long enough to do the story justice. And then we've put it all together in our potential 3-act structure breakdown, which, although basic, gives you a rough idea of how this could potentially work. So at the end of the day, does any part of me really think that this could work? No, not really. I mean, when you look at the Peter Jackson trilogy, it was incredible. I always wish there was more, but that's the thing. There are still parts from the books that were left out that I always wish had been included. And there's not really any parts of the trilogy that I wish they had actually left out that they put in. It's just one of those things that a lot of people who are fans of these works just want more and more and more, not less. Trying to turn that epic story into one sitting, because really, the only way The Lord of the Rings should ever be one movie is if you sit through all 3 of the extended editions in one sitting. And with that, now it is time for my question of the day, which is, if you were given this challenge, how would you do it? What would you do differently to me? Let me know your thoughts and opinion. Let me know your thoughts and ideas on this in the comment section down below. And now it is time to give a massive thank you to our patrons who continue to support the channel. You are all amazing. And if you have reached the very end of this video with me today and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It would massively help us out. And why not drop a like on the video as well? And with that, all I can say is, thank you for spending just some of your time with me today, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.